Under the harsh sunlight on the dirt road of the reserve, a child of about 5 years old sat crying, and right in front of him was a huge lion slowly approaching. Leo, the fiercest lion in the reserve, known as the king of the land. He had a thick brown mane, the leader of the pack, a lion accustomed to claiming his territory, hunting intruders without hesitation. But here, right in his path, there was no predator, no threat, just a small, helpless child. Leo stopped, his fierce amber eyes fixed on the boy. With each small sob, the lion's ears twitched, curiosity mixed with primal instinct as he circled the child. The boy looked up, eyes wide with fear at the huge lion, frozen as the lion's shadow loomed over him. For a heartbeat, there was nothing but silence. Then Leo let out a low, powerful growl, a sound that could shake the heart of any creature. The fear in those young eyes was met by a stare that held centuries of primal wisdom and an instinctive ferocity. Leo took a slow, deliberate step closer, his body taut, moving with an air of silent authority. The boy flinched, his fingers digging into the ground as he felt the powerful presence draw nearer. But Leo, sensing the fear in the child, made no sudden moves. Instead, he paced around him in a wide, slow circle, his gaze never wavering, his senses finely attuned to every movement, every breath of the child. Suddenly, a faint rustle came from the trees, and Leo's posture shifted. The sound triggered a response within him, a low, deep growl rumbling from his chest. He raised his head, looking beyond the boy, his gaze hardening as he detected the scent of another lion nearby. Leo's instincts surged to the surface, recognizing the potential threat. With a warning snarl, he positioned himself between the boy and the source of the sound, his powerful frame forming a protective barrier. The boy, confused yet somehow comforted by Leo's sudden display, could only watch in silence, his wide eyes tracing the lion's every move. Leo's powerful roar split the air, a sound so fierce that it sent tremors through the ground. The other lions in his pride, young, curious cubs, had been drawn by the sound of the child's cries, slowly closing in with wary, predatory steps. But Leo's command was unmistakable, his roar signaling them to halt. With one sharp, unyielding glare, he drove back the cubs that dared step closer. The young lions scattered, hesitating only a moment under his dominant gaze before retreating into the underbrush, leaving Leo alone with the child. Leo circled the boy protectively, his large frame casting a shadow over him. Every now and then, he paused, his ears alert to any movements from the surrounding forest, his instincts heightened. He was a formidable protector, and his presence was a warning to any lurking threat that might dare approach. The boy, wide-eyed and trembling, stayed rooted to the spot, frozen under the lion's watchful stance. Meanwhile, at the other end of the reserve, Liam was making his routine patrol. Suddenly, he heard the unmistakable roar of Leo echoing across the land, a sound so intense it seemed to carry an urgent message. Alarmed, Liam pressed down on the gas pedal, speeding his jeep over the uneven paths. He knew Leo's roar well, knew the tone and power it held, but this time there was something different, something that made Liam's heart race. Liam tightened his grip on the steering wheel, the sharpness of Leo's roar echoing through the stillness of the morning. Memories flashed in his mind, vivid reminders of Leo's journey from a fragile cub to the powerful lion he had become, a journey they had shared since the very beginning. Years ago, Liam had found Leo, a tiny bundle of fur curled up next to his mother's lifeless form, deep in the wilderness of the reserve. Her life had been claimed by the ruthless greed of poachers, her majestic presence reduced to nothing more than a tragic scene. Liam had been barely more than a teenager himself, yet he felt an immediate, unexplainable connection to the cub. He had gathered Leo up with care, gently cradling the frightened creature, promising silently that he would protect him whatever it took, and protect him he did. Nights were long in those early days. Leo was just a cub, too young and helpless to survive without constant care. Liam would get up at all hours, preparing formula, tending to Leo's tiny needs, as though he were a child of his own. Days turned into weeks, and through the soft, quiet routine, a bond formed, one that only grew as Leo began to grow stronger, his instincts sharpening as he learned from his surroundings and from Liam. As the months passed, Liam made a tough decision to introduce Leo back to the lion prides within the reserve. Liam knew that ultimately, a lion's life belonged with its kind, not with humans. Yet, to Liam's relief, one of the lionesses, a mother herself, experienced and compassionate, took Leo in as her own. It was her guidance, alongside Liam's care, that helped shape Leo's growth into the robust lion he was now. Years had passed since then, and in that time, Leo had become one of the dominant males in the reserve, his bravery matched by few. Leo had defended his territory countless times, emerging victorious in battles, showing every bit of his potential and courage. Liam would find himself silently cheering Leo on, hoping with all his heart that his lion would come out on top each time. But safety was never guaranteed. Over recent months, there had been unsettling signs that the sanctuary's boundaries were under threat. The sound of gunshots at night and faint, lingering scents of intruders kept Liam on edge. Liam remembered one night vividly, stumbling upon an antelope, wounded and struggling after a poacher's failed attempt to capture it. It had taken weeks of careful attention from the veterinary team to bring the animal back to health. Each incident left Liam more determined. He knew what poachers were capable of, how they'd reduce even the most magnificent animals to trophies, caring little for the life they snuffed out. Leo was his constant reminder of that, a living testament to the lives lost to senseless violence. Protecting the reserve was more than a job. It was his calling, a commitment as deep and fierce as the bond he shared with Leo. His train of thought stopped as he arrived. The morning sun cast its gentle light across the vast expanse of Savannah Haven, and Liam's eyes caught the rustle of the brush ahead. That familiar golden coat gleamed through the thick underbrush. It was Leo, but something was different. The great lion was pacing, his head low, ears tilted back. Every muscle in Liam's body tensed in response. As he edged closer to where Leo stood, he spotted what the lion was so intently focused on. Just ahead was a small child, no more than 5 years old, sitting utterly still and silent, as if sensing that any movement could disturb the balance of the strange encounter. Liam's heart raced. He knew Leo's pride well, knew the faces of each member, their positions, their bonds. But now, a shadow stirred behind the bushes, a glint of amber eyes. Then, another. The other lions were lurking, hidden yet waiting, and it struck Liam that Leo must have given a silent warning to his pride, a gesture that this child was not prey, not to be touched. Leo let out a low, rumbling growl, a sound that reverberated through the stillness of the morning air, and Liam could almost feel the tension drain from the shadows. The unseen lions turned back, disappearing silently into the tall grass. With each second, Liam's sense of urgency grew. He pressed down on the gas, his jeep covering the ground quickly until he was within a safe distance of Leo and the boy. He cut the engine, watching with careful eyes. Leo had taken a protective stance beside the child, his massive body forming a barrier between the boy and any potential threat. The lion's golden eyes surveyed the landscape with a wary intelligence, every twitch of his ear and shift of his stance showing a strange, almost human vigilance. Liam stepped out slowly, hands open, approaching them with measured caution. "Easy there, big guy," he murmured under his breath. Leo's gaze flicked towards him, and for a brief moment their eyes met in a look that felt as natural as if they were speaking. Liam could see it, a glimmer of recognition, a silent understanding. As Liam approached, Leo's gaze softened, and the lion slowly backed away, his giant paws leaving silent imprints in the earth. Leo's trust was absolute. He understood Liam's intentions and relinquished his watch over the child, walking off but never quite leaving, his shape blending into the surrounding grasses like a vigilant guardian. Carefully, Liam reached down and scooped the boy into his arms. The child, now aware of safety, buried his small face into Liam's shoulder, clinging tightly as if he'd known him all his life. A wave of relief washed over him, and he wrapped his arms securely around the boy, feeling a powerful, inexplicable connection bloom within. The warmth of that small body in his arms reminded him of the day he had found Leo, an abandoned cub with no one in the world. Now, here was another soul abandoned, left to fend for himself in a world that seemed to have forgotten him. Returning to the jeep, Liam settled the boy into the passenger seat and buckled him in gently. He climbed into the driver's side, glancing one last time at the grassy landscape, where Leo's golden coat shimmered briefly in the sunlight as if offering a silent farewell. As they pulled away, Liam kept his gaze forward, but his mind stayed with Leo. The journey back to the office was quiet, save for the child's soft breaths as he settled into a calm, almost instinctive trust beside Liam. There was something stirring in Liam, a resolve that grew stronger with each mile. He glanced at the boy from the corner of his eye, feeling the weight of the responsibility he now held, not just for the reserve or for Leo, but for this innocent life. As they approached the main gate of the reserve, Liam found himself silently promising. "I don't know what brought you here, little one," he thought, feeling the weight of the words. "But as long as I'm here, you'll be safe." The sight of the boy, lost and frightened in the middle of the wildlife reserve, was still vivid, disturbing his thoughts. He left the boy in the nurse's office next door, and he went into the monitoring room, sat down, and immediately accessed the security footage from the area where he'd found the boy. The grainy video flickered to life, showing a trail of dust in the dim light of the early morning. Liam's eyes scanned every detail, determined to find the answers he needed. After a few minutes, he spotted it. An old car parked at the edge of the reserve's boundary. The driver's door opened, and a young woman stepped out, hesitant as she surveyed her surroundings. Holding her son tightly, she looked around quickly, her face partially hidden under the brim of her faded hat. With a slight shake, she set the boy on the ground. Though he clung to her hand and refused to let go, she took one last look at him and hurried back to the car. In seconds, she was gone, leaving the boy standing alone and panicked on the dirt road. When the video ended, Liam leaned back in his seat, eyes narrowed in disbelief. "She really left him here? Of all places," he muttered, the words bitter on the tip of his tongue. Joe, another ranger who had noticed Liam watching the footage, stepped forward. "Why do you look so angry, Liam?" he asked, looking over his shoulder at the frozen frame of the boy on the screen. Liam shook his head, trying to contain his frustration. "Joe, she just left him here. This isn't a normal road. This is a reserve." The woman didn't even look back. It's like she didn't care what happened to him. Joe let out a low whistle. "That's hard to stomach. I mean, people do strange things when they're desperate. But this, right here with the lions and everything, makes no sense." "Exactly," Liam replied, his voice tight with both anger and confusion. "No sense at all. She didn't even consider the dangers. The kid could have been in serious trouble if we hadn't found him." They both stared at the screen, silence filling the room as they tried to process what they'd just seen. Finally, Liam took a deep breath. "I'll have to contact the authorities," he said, trying to push aside the lingering anger. "They need to know what happened here, and maybe they can help track down any family he might have." But even as he said the words, a part of him resisted. Deep down, he felt an urge to protect Oliver, to ensure he'd be safe, especially after everything the boy had endured A quiet sound broke through his thoughts, the soft shuffle of small feet. Liam turned to see Oliver standing in the doorway, his eyes wide and uncertain. "Hey, buddy," Liam said, his voice softening. He motioned for Oliver to come closer, noticing the way the boy clung to the small, stuffed lion he'd found for him earlier. "How are you holding up?" The boy didn't answer, but he took a few hesitant steps toward Liam, looking up with a trust Liam hadn't expected to see so soon. Liam knelt down, meeting him at eye level. "My name's Liam. Do you know yours?" Oliver nodded slowly, murmuring, "Oliver." Liam smiled gently, letting the boy's name settle into his mind. "Well, Oliver, it's nice to meet you. You must be pretty brave to be here on your own like this." Oliver didn't respond, but he shifted a little closer to Liam, as if seeking the safety he knew had been missing. Liam gave him a reassuring pat on the shoulder, feeling his own heart soften further. Whatever had led Oliver to be left here, Liam knew one thing for sure: this boy didn't deserve to feel abandoned. As Oliver sat down quietly beside him, Joe watched the scene with a knowing nod. "You know, Liam, not everyone's cut out to look after a kid. Some folks, they just can't manage it." "Maybe," Liam murmured, still watching Oliver. "But that doesn't make it right. He deserves better, and right now, he needs someone to look out for him." Joe placed a hand on Liam's shoulder. "If anyone can do it, it's you, Liam. You've got the heart for it, that's for sure." With Oliver close, Liam began dialing the authorities, keeping his voice low so as not to startle the boy. While he waited on the line, he felt a tug on his sleeve. He glanced down to find Oliver looking up at him, eyes wide with unspoken questions and perhaps a glimmer of hope. Liam's resolve only grew stronger. "We'll find your family, Oliver," he promised, though a part of him wasn't sure he wanted to let the boy go. He'd sensed the abandonment too strongly, and if that was what Oliver had left behind, Liam would make sure he found something better. Liam stared at the fading sun over the reserve, feeling the weight of his responsibilities and an unexpected warmth from the small figure clutching his hand. Oliver, the little boy left behind by his parents, had somehow woven himself into the very fabric of Liam's life here, just as deeply as Leo had over the years. Protecting this place, these creatures, it was his purpose. But watching over this child, that was quickly becoming something else altogether. In the days that followed, Liam found himself drawn to Oliver, almost as if he were one of the creatures under his care. Oliver's presence was a welcome contrast to the silent majesty of the reserve. Where Leo's world was full of roars and fierce strength, Oliver brought quiet laughter and curiosity. Each morning, Oliver would shuffle beside Liam, his small feet trying to keep pace as they made rounds, the boy's excitement bubbling over with each new sight. "Look, Liam, there's Leo!" Oliver's small voice would chime with glee whenever he spotted the lion lounging under the shade of the trees, his golden mane catching the sun. Leo would often lift his massive head and look their way, seeming to understand the reverence Oliver held for him. Liam watched these interactions with a strange blend of joy and pride, aware of the connection forming between the boy and the lion. "Think he remembers me, Liam?" Oliver asked one day, his voice barely more than a whisper as he peered up at Leo from a safe distance. Liam chuckled, kneeling beside Oliver. "Oh, I'd bet he does. Animals don't forget kindness, and Leo's got a memory like steel. Just be respectful, and he'll know you're a friend." Oliver's eyes widened with awe, nodding as he gazed back at the lion. And each time, without fail, the boy's joy would leave an imprint on Liam's heart, one that seemed to grow deeper with every outing. In Oliver's wide-eyed admiration, Liam found a reminder of his own younger self, captivated by the vastness of nature and the creatures that lived within it. The staff at the reserve had taken to Oliver too, watching over him when Liam was out tending to urgent matters or dealing with patrols. His co-workers often invited Oliver to tag along on simple tasks, sharing little stories or showing him bits and pieces of the reserve's operations. They had begun to regard him as a small but meaningful part of their lives here, even bringing treats or little trinkets to make the child feel at home. One evening, as they sat around the fire, Oliver sat close to Liam, his small hands fiddling with a wooden lion one of the staff had carved for him. Silence stretched comfortably between them, punctuated only by the distant roars echoing from Leo's territory. After a long pause, Oliver looked up, his gaze steady, searching. "Liam, if my mum doesn't come back, do you still want me here?" His voice was soft, hesitant, almost afraid of the answer. "My mum. She doesn't like me." Liam took a slow breath, feeling the depth of the boy's question settle within him. It was a question he had asked himself repeatedly in recent days, and each time his heart whispered the same answer. "Oliver, if it were up to me, you'd stay right here with us. This place, it feels a little more like home with you around." The boy's eyes glistened with relief and happiness, and Liam found himself reaching out, resting a comforting hand on his shoulder. The following day began with a call Liam had been dreading, yet expected. The voice on the other end was calm but firm. No family for Oliver could be found. There wasn't anyone listed or registered, no relatives appearing to claim him. The call ended, leaving Liam in silence, the weight of the boy's situation heavy in the quiet of the room. For a long moment, he stood by the window, looking out at the expanse of the reserve he knew so well, but his thoughts weren't on the land. They were on the little boy, whose laughter and innocent questions had somehow already woven themselves into his daily routine. Liam turned around to find Oliver peeking around the corner, watching him with curious eyes. His heart swelled with a mixture of protectiveness and something else, something unfamiliar but strong. He cleared his throat and forced a smile. "Hey, kiddo, how about we take a little tour today? I bet Leo's prowling somewhere out there." Oliver's face lit up, the shadows of uncertainty melting away instantly. "Can we, Dad?" The word slipped out naturally, innocently, and it stopped Liam in his tracks. Dad. He hadn't expected to hear that, he hadn't asked for it, hadn't even imagined it. But here it was, a tiny word carrying a world of meaning. "Yeah," he said, his voice rough. "Yeah, we can." He took Oliver by the hand, guiding him through the heart of the reserve. The landscape stretched vast and unending, alive with creatures who had learned to trust Liam's steady presence over the years. Today, he noticed the land with new eyes, sensing Oliver's excitement, feeling each question the boy posed ripple through him with a renewed sense of purpose. "That's a kudu," Liam explained, as Oliver pointed at the distant silhouette of a large antelope, its horns spiraling like twisted branches. "They're quick, and they're smart, just like you have to be out here." Oliver looked up at him, nodding with a seriousness that made Liam smile. The boy took in everything he said, his eyes wide with wonder. "Are they, your friends too?" he asked, tilting his head as if to catch Liam's reaction. "Maybe," Liam replied, half joking, half serious. "They don't always think so, though. They don't much care for rangers. They'd rather be left alone." As they continued, a shadow crossed their path. It was Leo, watching from a ridge, his mane catching the sunlight in a blaze of gold. The lion's eyes locked onto them, assessing, recognizing, before he padded down the slope toward them. Oliver's grip tightened on Liam's hand, but his gaze held steady. "Is Leo your friend, Dad?" There it was again. Dad. Liam gave Oliver's hand a reassuring squeeze, a sense of pride swelling within him that he couldn't explain. "I'd say so," he answered finally, meeting the boy's gaze. "Leo and I, we've been through a lot together. He's a part of this place, just like me." They stood there, watching as Leo circled close, his steps slow and careful. The lion seemed to acknowledge Oliver in his own quiet way, dipping his head in what almost looked like respect before he turned and disappeared back into the brush. That evening, back at the cabin, Liam tucked Oliver in for the night, feeling the quiet warmth that had become so familiar over these days together. He knew then, as he watched Oliver drift into sleep, that he couldn't bear the thought of letting him go. Liam took a steadying breath. Whatever it took, he would fight for this child, even if the journey was difficult. It was time to start the adoption process, and he would face whatever obstacles came his way. As the next few days unfolded, Liam found himself navigating a mountain of paperwork and requirements, each form and fee another step toward adopting Oliver. Every visit to the city offices and calls to the authorities left him drained. Still, he couldn't shake the image of the young boy's wide-eyed wonder when they'd first toured the reserve together. The boy had become so much a part of his life that this challenge, though formidable, felt almost natural. Yet each legal barrier was a reminder that their bond wasn't officially recognized. The bureaucracy loomed large. Whenever Liam got back from a trip to town, Oliver was waiting eagerly, his small face lighting up with questions and excitement. "Did you finish, Liam? When can we see Leo?" Oliver would ask, eyes full of hope. The big lion held a deep place in Oliver's heart, and the little boy talked about him constantly, as if Leo were just another friend waiting for a visit. Liam tried to keep his voice steady and reassuring each time he replied, saying, "Soon, buddy. It's taking a little longer, but we'll get there." The process wore on, yet the joy Oliver brought into Liam's life was undeniable. In the evenings, when the paperwork was set aside, the sound of Oliver's laughter as he chased butterflies near the cabin or ran along the reserve's pathways filled the air, lifting Liam's spirits. For all the struggles, those moments made every late night and early morning worth it. Oliver's presence, his laughter, and his endless curiosity about the world around him reminded Liam why he'd started this journey. This wasn't about duty, it was love. At times, Liam felt the weight of it all pressing down on him, the legal complexities, the steep costs, and the concern of whether he was truly the best guardian for Oliver. In those moments of doubt, he turned to the people who had become his family at the reserve. He'd known them for years, they'd shared in the joys and the heartbreaks of caring for these animals, and now they were there for him in his quest to bring Oliver fully into his life. One afternoon, as he and his friend Mark shared a coffee break, Liam voiced some of his concerns. Mark, always the optimist, clapped him on the shoulder, saying, "You've got this, Liam. That kid's already yours, in every way that matters. Paperwork's just catching up." Liam chuckled, feeling a little lighter. Those words stayed with him, echoing through the following days as he faced yet another round of questions, fees, and home checks. Each time he saw Oliver playing freely on the reserve, he felt that reassurance growing stronger. His friends stepped up whenever he needed a hand, helping around the cabin, sharing meals, and providing the support he never realized he'd rely on so much. And as the days passed, the threads of their bond grew tighter. As they neared the final stages, Oliver sensed the excitement building. "Will Leo remember me, Liam?" Oliver asked one evening, looking up at him with all the innocence and hope of a child. "Leo won't forget you, Ollie," Liam replied, his voice steady. "You're family to him, just like you are to me." Liam glanced down at Oliver, whose small hand was firmly clasped in his own. Today marked the official beginning of their lives as father and son. It had taken months of paperwork, endless questions, and a lot of sleepless nights, but here they were. The final adoption papers were signed, and it felt like he'd finally reached the summit after a long climb. Oliver, oblivious to the formalities, was practically bouncing with excitement. "Where are we going, Dad?" Oliver looked up at Liam with his big, curious eyes. "Well, first we're making a stop," Liam replied, smiling as he emphasized the word Dad. He was still getting used to it, but it felt right, like a puzzle piece falling into place. "I want you to meet someone very special." It wasn't long before they arrived at Liam's parents' house. His mother was already standing by the door, eyes shimmering with warmth, and his father right behind her, looking both proud and just a bit emotional. They had been eager to meet their new grandson, and today they finally would. As they stepped inside, Liam's mother knelt down, holding out a plush teddy bear with a wide smile. "Hello, Oliver. I'm Grandma," she said gently, handing him the bear. "And this is for you." Oliver's face lit up. "Thank you, Grandma." His grandfather stepped forward with a wooden box, gently placing it in Oliver's hands. "Open it, son. It's from me." Inside the box was a miniature lion, carved and polished by hand. Oliver's eyes grew wide, and he ran his fingers over it, tracing every little detail. "It's Leo," he exclaimed, holding up the wooden lion with pride. Liam's father chuckled. "Yes, it's Leo. That one is yours to keep, little man. A reminder of your friend." The warmth of that moment hung in the air, but Liam knew there was more in store for Oliver. After a while, they said their goodbyes, and he led Oliver back to the Jeep. Their next destination was back at the reserve, where Leo awaited, unaware of his role in this important day. As they approached Leo's territory, Liam noticed the usual tension in Oliver's face turn into pure excitement. The moment they stepped out of the Jeep, Leo's massive frame came into view, and the lion lifted his head to watch them. There was something almost contemplative in the way he observed them, a steady gaze as though he sensed a change. Liam put a hand on Oliver's shoulder, keeping his son close as they approached the boundary where Leo lay waiting. "There he is, son," Liam said softly. "Our Leo." Oliver, unable to contain himself, waved eagerly. "Hi, Leo," he shouted, his voice breaking through the quiet. The lion continued watching, his eyes glinting in the sunlight. With a slow blink, he seemed to acknowledge them both, and Liam couldn't shake the feeling that Leo understood the significance of today. Turning to Oliver, Liam knelt down beside him. "You know, Leo's been through a lot, just like you." He paused, searching for the right words. "I found him when he was just a cub, after he'd lost his mother. At first I wasn't sure he would make it, but he's a fighter, just like you, and he's grown to be a strong, amazing lion." Oliver's eyes were locked on Leo, his young mind soaking up every word. "Did you help him, Dad?" he asked, voice soft. "I did," Liam nodded. "And in some ways, he helped me too. He taught me about loyalty, about never giving up." He looked at Oliver and squeezed his shoulder gently. "And now, he's going to be part of our family, just like you." As the sun began to dip, casting a golden glow over the reserve, they sat quietly, father and son, watching Leo stretch and settle down, calm as ever. This peace was something Liam had always cherished, but now, with Oliver by his side, it felt complete. The evening came, and as they made their way back to the main reserve area, they were greeted by the smiling faces of the staff. Tables had been set up, and plates of food were spread out in celebration. It was a simple gathering, but filled with laughter and warmth. His colleagues, who had seen Liam's journey from the very beginning, were here to welcome Oliver into their circle. "Welcome, little man," one of the rangers said, ruffling Oliver's hair as he handed him a small cupcake decorated with a tiny lion's face. "You've got yourself one incredible dad, you know," Oliver beamed, clutching the cupcake with both hands. "I know," he said confidently, glancing at Liam, who felt a mixture of pride and joy that he hadn't felt in years. They spent the rest of the evening surrounded by the people who had become more than just co-workers to Liam. They were family. Laughter filled the air, and Oliver's giggles mingled with the deep voices of the rangers, his youthful energy a perfect contrast to their gruff camaraderie. For Liam, This celebration marked the start of a new life, one that would be filled with challenges, but also with the undeniable joy of having a son by his side. As they wrapped up the evening and began to head home, Liam glanced at Oliver, who was fast asleep in his arms, clutching the wooden lion tightly. For the first time in a long while, Liam felt an unshakable sense of contentment. His family was whole, his heart full. And somewhere in the shadows, Leo watched them leave, his eyes glinting in the dark, a silent guardian over his unconventional family. As the days drifted gently into weeks, life for Liam and Oliver found a natural rhythm in the reserve. They shared quiet moments that stretched with a subtle warmth, like the long shadows cast by the late afternoon sun. Oliver, with each passing day, seemed to grow closer to understanding not just the animals around him, but the heartbeat of the place that had become his new world. Liam watched Oliver's transformation with a quiet satisfaction, marveling at how a child's curiosity could blossom so freely in a place as wild as the reserve. One morning, as the first light broke, Liam prepared Oliver for a special day out among the animals, a day he hoped would teach him the meaning of guardianship over nature. "Ready, kiddo?" Liam asked, a gentle smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Where are we going today, Dad?" Oliver asked, his eyes bright with anticipation. "We're heading out to Leo's territory," Liam replied, adjusting the binoculars around Oliver's neck. "You're going to learn about tracking today. It's important to understand their ways, not just watch from a distance." The boy's face lit up at the mention of Leo, his spirit alive with admiration for the lion that had, in a way, become his silent protector. Together, they set off into the wide open fields, Liam pointing out faint trails and footprints, explaining the subtleties of the terrain, the weather, and the unseen movements of animals in the wild. "You see that there?" Liam said, stopping by a shallow impression in the dirt. "Leo's prints. You can tell by the size. No other lion around here has paws that big. It's how he lets everyone know who's boss." Oliver knelt down, placing his hand just above the massive paw print, almost reverent as he imagined Leo prowling silently through the same ground. A part of him felt the thrill of that unspoken bond with the lion. As they ventured further, Oliver grew silent, deeply absorbing each lesson Liam imparted. There was a particular moment when they spotted Leo, standing tall atop a small hill, his mane catching the wind as he surveyed the plains around him. Oliver couldn't help but feel something beyond words, a connection that transcended fear, one built on trust and respect. "Do you think Leo remembers saving me?" Oliver whispered, almost as if he feared the lion would hear and be disturbed. Liam nodded, a gentle look in his eyes. "Animals remember what matters, son. Leo knows who you are. You're family to him in a way, just like you are to me." They stood together in silence, watching the mighty lion until he disappeared into the shadows of the trees, like a guardian spirit retreating to his realm. As the day waned, Liam and Oliver returned home with hearts full of shared moments and a quiet sense of understanding. To Liam, these days spent teaching Oliver were priceless. They were building more than knowledge. They were forging memories that would last a lifetime, a legacy tied to this rugged, wild land. With Oliver's hand resting in his, Liam looked out across the land he had loved and protected for so long. In that moment, he knew he had found not just a son, but a partner, someone to carry forward the responsibility of love and care for the wild. The reserve stretched before them, silent and timeless, a sanctuary where their small, unusual family would always belong.